Mahesh, how are you doing?
Hey Satyajit, nice to meet you again.
Yeah, cool, man. Hey, thanks for doing this conversation. This is a very important one,
Of course.
and this was requested by IIT Bombay to put together this series of talks about how to take music as a career.
Wonderful.
As you know, there is a lot of interest around in the younger generation to take up music, media, filmmaking, stand-up comedy, and all kinds of things as a profession. So they want to kind of clear the whole clutter and create these sessions that what it really takes to pursue music as a career. So for music, because we have been, as Livdemy, we have been in the music space for quite some time, and then we are also associated with like a lot of well-known artists, including yourself. And first of all, thank you for being with us from the day
Of
one.
course.
Literally, you have
Education is like something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
Because my mom also is a teacher actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's been teaching for the last 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And just like her, I was inspired to teach. And teaching music is something I'm really passionate about, and I'm so glad to be associated with Livdemy. So
that's awesome. So IIT Bombay, for the Mood Indigo, they wanted to do this talk series, and so they chose us as to partner with to create these sessions. And then we are like talking different sessions with different artists, and then I could not think of anyone better than you when it comes to music production.
thank you so much.
So let's just get this started. Give us
Of
like
course,
a little background story about like how you got to where you started music.
So I was introduced into the world of music at the age of 3. So I started learning Carnatic music under my aunt Indira Krishna. So I learned that for 15 years, and I was also very passionate about technology and playing the piano. I started by playing the piano by ear, then I wanted to formally learn. So by the time I was 18, I finished all the 8th grades of Trinity College on keyboards as well as music theory. Plus at that age, I was also well versed with Carnatic music since I've been learning since the age of 3. So now after that, what happened was my parents were really encouraging that I should pursue music as a career. That was a huge driving force for me to keep going and pursuing and practicing music, because not a lot of parents are. I know how it is. So I was lucky enough, and I pursued my audio engineering at SAE Institute Dubai. Then I went on to do a master's in music production. So when it comes to training, I'm I was lucky to have amazing teachers and lucky to have a really thorough education in this field that I am in right now.
You said you grew up in Dubai, right?
I grew up in Dubai, yes.
Okay. And the Carnatic classical part that you talked about, there was instrumentals or vocals or both?
So I learned Carnatic vocals for 15 years.
Okay.
And so it was a mix of vocal and instrumental.
Did you learn any like violin or?
I learned to play the piano, but that was completely Western.
Yeah, that was the Western piano and Carnatic vocals.
Yeah.
That's a great combination right there. When did you really start playing music?
As in singing?
Yeah.
That was from the age of 3 actually. I started singing as a little kid. And then I suddenly, my aunt also had a piano in the house.
Yeah.
Like a Casio keyboard. So I used to just play around with that, and I was able to play by ear.
Okay.
Slowly, because of the influence of Indian music and everything, I was able to recognize notes, play intervals and all of that. And that's how I gathered interest to pursue Western music as well, because that's also something that I wanted to learn.
Yeah. So I also wanted to ask you difference between becoming a full-time musician from the transition from being a music student to full-time like a professional musician.
So I'm going to be a student of music throughout my life.
Absolutely.
So you can never stop. It's such a vast ocean. You keep learning and learning. That's how you keep becoming better. But the transition to become a full-time musician happened. It's not something that happened overnight. It happened in stages. So as soon as I graduated, I worked as a music educator in Dubai, and also I was doing freelance work as a video editor and also a music producer. So it's a lot of things. I had multiple income streams. So just so that I could do music whenever I wanted to. So I took up a lot of freelance gigs.
Oh, you did the videos?
Yeah, I used, not a lot of people, but know this. I was doing video editing for events, a lot of events, and
Oh, incredible.
so that's how my YouTube channel and everything,
Yeah.
all the videos I edit.
I know you. I mean, this is why I said earlier that I couldn't find a better person to talk about production, because you actually produce everything. A lot of musicians they sort of outsource the production part to someone. You perform, you record, you mix and master, and you also produce video, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Very few
So
people. They do.
it's very important for people to pick up a lot of interdisciplinary skills nowadays, because it's all about being versatile.
Oh, yeah.
Now coming back to the question, so basically while I was working in all of these freelance gigs, music was something that I always wanted to do. It was my calling. So I kept working on music. I kept practicing, because that's when I started playing the iPad. And I had this idea, okay, iPad, Carnatic music, electronic music, they can all go together. So I kept working up a repertoire. But slowly things started going viral on YouTube and everything. But then I felt that I wasn't ready to get on stage yet, because first of all, to go on stage, you need a repertoire. Second, it's very important that you're able to handle any kind of situation that happens, because on stage sometimes you know what so many things can go wrong. So I wanted to be confident enough that I reach a point where I'm good enough to handle any kind of situation. So I waited. I was getting inquiries for a lot of shows and everything, but I waited for a while since till I thought I was ready and confident. Now this is very important for a lot of musicians, because I knew that the moment I start performing, I will get less time to work on my art. And this is because you'd only have 24 hours a day. You can either devote it to traveling, performing, doing all that, or devote it to honing your skills and becoming the best at what you do. So I waited for a while. So, and it took me around 4 years to develop a repertoire and develop in such a way that it can be dynamic on stage. And after 4 years, I decided, okay, now I can make the next move. Because I was also getting enough inquiries for live performances. And then I thought, okay, this is a good time. I can do this. And then I took the plunge. I moved to India. And then I started performing.
Before we talk about moving to India, so while in Dubai you started doing this thing. So what was it? You were getting these inquiries to sing on the stage or play piano or?
For the whole act, I was doing a lot of things. So basically people wanted the iPad on stage. But the thing is, I wanted to wait until the repertoire was strong enough. Because to build a repertoire takes time. So I waited, and it was absolutely worth it, because so it's an interesting story. The first show I did was actually in China.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So actually it was with my friend Shravan Sridhar, who's a violinist.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So I got an inquiry to perform in China in an arts festival. And then Shravan and I were working on a collaboration, and then we really gelled and we really got along. And I told him, okay, let's. I got this inquiry in China. If you want to start performing, now is a good time, and we can do it together. So we started off as a 2-piece, and we just called it Carnatic 2.0 because we didn't know what else to call it. Then our first show was in China, and then it was really great to perform because it was also new for us. We were used to performing, let's say, keyboards, or I was just singing. But now on the iPad, I have this new interface to just create music that is very interesting. And it felt good when the audience I explained what I do, and they were like, oh, this is what it is.
But now, could they relate to the Carnatic music that you were playing
in China?
In China?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, really?
Yeah, totally. Because it was all fusion. There was dance involved as well. So it was a great experience. So from then on, we just kept performing and performing and performing. One thing led to another, and now I like every month at least, like I get a lot of inquiries to perform, and I'm comfortable.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, this was around 2013 or 14 when you started?
I started playing the iPad around 2013, but I started performing full time 2017 or 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think 2013 or 14. That's when we all noticed you. I think Jordan came to your place in.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to get a session with Jordan where I could learn the app from him as well.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's other way around also. He
yeah,
also learned
yes.
from you.
Yeah, we had like an exchange of ideas, and
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
I remember he put that session on Facebook. I think
Yes.
that's when we all saw, and we were like saw with like jaws dropped. Like, how can you even like come up with that kind of expressions on the iPad? It was unthinkable.
Yeah, it's a lot of, to build that technique took a little time. There's no reference as such.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it was a lot of trial and error, and now we also teach it on Livdemy.
Yeah.
So
Well, you're quite an innovator in that sense, and which is incredible. A lot of people, they just go the route through which we have all been learning music, and we have all been producing music, but you thought out of box, and that app GeoShed, which was never thought about like being able to produce like Indian expressions and all that, but you thought out of box. So that was quite an innovation at that age.
So what it was is I was also looking for a solution, because I was playing the piano, right?
Yes.
And on the piano you can't do any bends or anything.
Yeah, you
and
can
because
do the whammy bar? What is it called?
You literally need to bend the string or do the pitch bend.
Yeah.
Or so for me that was like a revelation. So because I'm been learning Carnatic vocals for so long, to be able to do those bends on a piano, I was missing that.
Yeah.
So soon as I saw the app, it was like a game changer for me to be able to do that.
Was it able to do those kind of like transitions from between notes from the very early days, or you kind of provided some feedback to them so that it became better and better?
So at the start, it was actually called GeoSynth. That was another app.
Okay.
Where so basically on that app you were able to slide between the notes.
Yeah.
And of course, like during the early days, it was just me and the app.
Okay.
But later on, Jordan got in touch.
Okay.
And then from then on, I've been working with the team at Wisdom Music and Moforte to include some of my ideas to make it easier to play the technique that I have come up with.
Yeah. So actually, it is incredible that we have had a very long partnership with GeoShed themselves, and it's absolutely amazing, and actually very proud to see how you have contributed to that whole that ecosystem, and it's quite evident that whenever they come up with any new version of the app, they always run it by you. And
we have an amazing team of testers, and it's a community now.
Yeah.
It started off with very, very few people, and now it's like we have a whole GeoShed community in India, which is a proud.
But still, I think there is still quite lesser known. I would say, because every once in a while I talk about you to someone, and they probably don't know. So I think there's a lot more awareness that needs to happen.
That's slowly but steadily. Because even U. Srinivas, the great U. Srinivas, started off playing Carnatic music on the mandolin, and now he's like when you think of Carnatic instrumental music, his name one of the topmost that comes to my mind actually. So
absolutely. So there are two types of people, I would say. There are one type of people who are sort of very innately talented on music, like a prodigy level talented. Some of them, they don't want to take up music as a career, and there are other kind of people who probably gets attracted with like all sorts of things on the social media, and they all want to become a musician. So I know there's like two different approach. So what is your take on that? How do you really gauge yourself that you're ready for a profession?
So this is actually a very important question, because I have a lot of people coming to me saying, okay, I want to take up music as a career. And when I ask them, okay, how long have you been playing music? I just started 2 months back. And that is kind of scary, because like if you take any profession which involves going to university, like let's say you want to become a doctor.
Yeah.
Now, the step number 1 to becoming a doctor, you have to learn how to read and write.
Yeah.
Then you have to learn about like biology, physics, chemistry, maths. So that's a 12-year education. After that, bachelor's, master's, then your PhD, then you like MBBS. So to become a doctor, step 1 starts from learning to read and write.
Yeah.
And the same with music.
Yeah.
You have to learn, there are some basics.
Yeah.
Then there are some intermediate things that you have to do. And then, of course, practice is a daily activity. So the amount of effort it takes to get from point A to the end goal where you can become a confident musician, it's the same amount of effort to take to become any other profession. It's not like being a musician is easy.
Yeah.
Because as like all the people you have interviewed till now,
Yeah.
they will tell you how much they have practiced and how much they have sacrificed.
Yeah.
It's not that we just go perform on stage and do nothing else the rest of the day. I'm producing for almost like 10 hours every day. So
Yeah. Wow.
so it's like a continuous thing. So becoming a musician number 1 takes a lot of effort. Number 2, you need the right education and the right mindset, because it's not like a plan B kind of profession. You have to go all in, otherwise you won't really get to where you want to be. And obviously you have to be really good at what you do, like at least be passionate to get to that point. And so that's what it actually takes. It's the same amount of effort that is there in any other profession. You have to be good at what you do to do well, which applies to everything in the world. So that is the main mindset that you need to have. Now, talking about the people who just starting, who want to become a musician, my advice to them is just be ready to put in this much effort. So you have to put in the same amount of effort, and you will definitely know when you are ready, because there are so many mentors out there. If you see a professional musician, and you'll always find that, like when you're starting off, you'll always be amazed at what people can do, and that will always be there. But the more you listen, the more you play with others, the more you learn. The thing is, you have to put in those hours, you have to practice, and you have to be of course be passionate about what you do. That's the main thing. And it's best to have a mentor of any kind who will tell you, okay, now is the time.
That was actually going to be my next question, which was like the role of mentors. So can you shed a little light on that?
So having a mentor is really important, because number 1, it's someone to look up to. Then it's someone to tell you when you are wrong. Because for example, let's say if you're playing a scale on the keyboard, there's a certain fingering that you have to follow, and let's say you're not aware of it. If you're playing, say, C major scale with the wrong fingering and you get it right in a certain tempo, if you don't play it with the wrong, if you don't play in the right fingering, you might not get it faster, and or you might strain your hands and you might get injured. You need a mentor to tell you that. Otherwise, it's going to be, your journey becomes that much longer. So a mentor will help you it's like having a guru. Just if you want to get from somewhere to somewhere else, the guru will show you the way. That's why having a mentor is important.
Because you are also trained into a different kind of music, Carnatic and Western. So if there is someone who's like a multi-instrumentalist, do you suggest that they for piano they have a separate mentor, for Carnatic vocals they have a separate mentor, for Mridangam they have a separate mentor, so they have like
it's you have to keep learning somehow. That's a great thing, because having different mentors will give you different perspectives. And eventually, after like so many years, you'll be able to teach yourself new things. That when you get to that point, it's very satisfying, because you'll be able to pick up a lot faster, understand a lot faster. So, but in those initial stages, most of your life, having the mentor is a lifesaver. Like, you need it, is what I would say.
So, because you are also you do a lot of programming and you also program different kind of instruments, or whether you're playing on iPad also, you're playing GeoShed, and you're picking these different instruments like let's say Nadaswaram, or you're also playing Carnatic violin or flute. So, do you think you also have to have the learnings from the mentors in those particular instruments, because now you think from a producer's perspective?
Okay, so basically it's very important. Now let me relate this to another context which will make it easier to understand. So let's take a composer of Western classical music. Let's say you have to write a symphony. You need to know what an instrument is capable of. Let's say if you're writing a piece for cello, like it's a cello concerto, you will not have the highest notes of the scale played by the cello, because it's impossible to play, or something lower than what a cello can play. You should know that instrument has a range, and it is only capable of doing certain things. You will not write a flute line that is 60 seconds long, because breath, right? So just like that, for me as a producer, it's very important to understand what every instrument is capable of, what every instrument can and cannot do, and what is the context where the instrument sounds best. So that knowledge is essential, and you can only get that when you've listened to enough repertoire of that instrument. You need to know how the instrument is played. You don't need to know how to play it, but you need to have enough information on basically what, if I write this line for this instrument, how will that instrumentalist play it? And if I have to play it, I have to imagine how he will play it and then try and replicate that as a producer. So it's a constant imagining, and so I work with a lot of musicians, and sometimes I just see how they play certain things, and then I kind of absorb that information and keep it in my head somewhere. And then when I am trying to play that line, I remember, okay, he took a breath at this point, or he did a vibrato here. So that's those kind of things. It's important to keep in your mind when you try and replicate in production.
So we were just talking about like Nadaswaram, for example, a little while ago, that you told me that the instrument actually can be played in D or D sharp. The two types of Nadaswaram.
So the Nadaswaram is one instrument that I just did a Nadaswaram recording a week back actually. So the player was telling me. So basically, just like flute, you have in different pitches, and low pitched instruments require a lot more breath control. So that means he was telling me that when a Nadaswaram is low in pitch, like a lower pitched Nadaswaram requires a lot more power to play, and because of that he's able to not get that much dynamics. So dynamics is basically the difference between high volume, low volume, and all of that. So depending on that pitch, that also is like a thing to consider. If you will not write a piece for Nadaswaram in G sharp or A or something like that, because it's not physically not possible to play. So there's so many things to consider, but there's one advantage of using technology, that you can make it possible.
But it will not sound natural, right? I mean, if you take just because you can actually do the pitch change on the iPad or on the keyboard. If you transpose like a D Nadaswaram to G sharp or something, it'll just sound very unnatural.
But so there is another way. So people can actually transpose on the instrument itself and play it. That is one thing, but it's not meant to be played like that. So it's sometimes just you have to work around these things as well.
So since we talked about these different instruments and their sound and their characteristics, so can you also talk a little bit about the listening aspect, because you kind of touched upon it earlier. Like as a producer, like what kind of listening you did, and what do you suggest that people spend time listening to?
So I listen to music a little differently. So generally, before I started production, I listened to music like normal people do. So, but the main thing was the melody, the lyrics, the tune. These were the main aspects. as a musician, you listen to the different parts of musicians and everything. But as a producer, there's a lot of layers that you listen to. The main layer is just the melody, the tune. Then there's another layer, which is the arrangement. What all instruments are used, what each instrument is doing. Then there's a musical aspect of listening. Okay, what chord is going on at this point? How is this chord voiced? How is this chord voiced by different instruments? How are they contributing to that particular chord? What is the movement, the chord progression, the tempo? How is the rhythmic idea divided amongst the different percussion sounds? This is all the musical aspects of listening. Then there's also a production and mixing aspect, where how deep the kick drum is, what is the body of the snare, how compressed is the voice, how much reverb is there in the mix. So there are so many ways and so many layers to listening to a song, and a lot of detail that I'm able to hear right now, like all those tiny things that happen which I cannot unhear when I discover it. So there's so many things. It's a fun process to divide and dissect a song into its different layers.
Can you also spend a little bit of time about like explaining some of these layers? There are terms that are used, and especially for a layman, terms like programming and arrangement, and of course we have been talking about production. And you also will talk about like mixing and mastering.
Okay.
So can you take us through like different layers of music?
Okay, so basically there are different terms. I'll explain each one. One term is programming. Programming is essentially using software to interpret musical ideas. So it can be rhythm programming, where you're sequencing and arranging different sounds in a way to get the rhythm and the percussion. That's one aspect of programming. You can program a whole string section where you write the different notes, and then the software plays out those notes. So anything that involves using software to interpret musical ideas, create musical ideas, that is called programming. Now when it comes to arrangement is a bigger term. It may or may not include programming. You can but arrangement is basically deciding and writing different parts for different musicians. It can be written on a sheet of paper. It can be written on Sibelius, and you can print it out to each musician and give it to them, or it can be programmed on software. Basically, arrangement is the big daddy of programming, where you decide this instrument gets this part, this instrument plays here, plays there. Basically, the whole song, constructing the whole song into individual elements and making it whole. That's arrangement. Now, when you say music production, being a producer entails a lot more than your producer may or may not be an arranger. The producer is basically takes care of the entire song as a project, or an entire album as a project, decides budgets, decides logistics, which studio to record, what mic to use. So many aspects to it. So that is a producer. It's also confused. Like that is basically the original term definition for a music producer. Now, music producer is basically someone who takes care of all of the programming and arrangement and everything on a computer. That's what a music producer is today. But the original definition of producer was taking care of the entire project as a whole and being responsible for it. Now, when it comes to the other two terms that we discussed, mixing and mastering. Now, mixing is basically it's the process of cleaning up all of these instruments that you record on a mixing console or on a software to make sure everything is heard and everything is clean. There's a tool called an equalizer, so our ears are able to hear frequencies from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. And a lot of these instruments, they clash in frequency. So basically cleaning up all of these different layers in order to ensure that all of the layers sound like one. They're playing together, they're playing in one space. That is mixing. Now when mastering is a process that comes after a song is mixed. After a song is mixed, usually we need to ensure that the song sounds consistent when played with other songs. It's basically the same loudness, the same level of punch, the same basically frequency curve and things like that, to make sure something is radio ready.
Yeah.
That is basically the mastering stage.
So will it be right to say that in terms of like layers and in electronic music production, so there is programming and then arrangement and then production and then mixing and mastering, is that right? Or
Yeah, so basically arrangement, the programming is basically it's like one job.
yeah.
When you say arrangement, that job includes programming.
Okay.
Producer means usually they do everything.
Yeah.
They hire an arranger and a programmer.
Yeah.
And then after the song is done, it gets sent for mixing and mastering.
Okay.
So that's a separate.
That's a sort of parallel.
That's a parallel,
process.
yeah. Not parallel, one after the other, like it's in
Okay.
series. Yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you, because you said that you prepare charts and then you hand it over to different musicians. How much of musical literacy is involved here for a producer? Like, are you supposed to read and write music, or is that something?
Not for me, it's
Yeah.
useful to read and write music because I work with so many musicians. But if you're an electronic music producer, more than learning to read and write music, it's important to learn the theory of things.
Yeah.
It's important to learn how a chord is voiced, how it will sound in this instrument, how it will sound, what is the range of these instruments. That knowledge is more important when you're working with software. So it's not really it's not really knowing how to read and write music. Of course, that goes without saying. It's important and it's a great skill to have. But knowing the theory is, I would say, it's a must.
Okay. And when it comes to theory, so there is, let's say if you're doing a vocals recording, do you also need to know this whole harmony approach, like vocals harmony parts, like?
So the concept of harmony and voicing and chords is pretty much similar for all instruments. So let's say we have to voice, we have to do a vocal arrangement. I would still follow the same concepts that I use for a string arrangement, where we have different. So we have something called 4-part harmony. We have the lowest layer, which is bass. Then we have alto, tenor, soprano. So basically, soprano, alto, tenor, and bass.
Yeah.
4 parts. If you know how to arrange these 4 parts, you can use those concepts for strings and vocals or woodwinds or any other.
Yeah.
But learning to write for a 4-part harmony, that is the main skill.
Yeah.
Then if you're writing for voices, there are just some things to keep in mind which might be different for writing for strings. But essentially, it's learning the 4-part harmony, which is the main thing.
Yeah. And in this time and age, I think it's very important for someone to leverage all this technology through software and hardware, I believe. So can you talk a little bit about the whole software approach and hardware, if there is any hardware involved here?
Yeah.
So can you talk about that?
So when I started off, all I had was a laptop.
Okay.
But now today I work, like I have a band, I have musicians to work with. But the thing is, it's always essential for any producer to have the end picture in mind.
Yeah.
So you need to know, okay, I'm writing this song. This is how it will sound in the end. It's once you have that picture in mind, getting there, you can use any approach. You can record everything live, or you can use software, whatever, it's up to you. It's your budget. But once you have that end picture in mind, you kind of make your own journey on how do I get there. So let's say you have a synth line that you need. You might have a synth lying around in your studio, which you can just play and record and move all your knobs. Or you might have the equivalent or something on your laptop. But knowing what to do, that is the most important part. Knowing how to use the tools and what the tool is capable of doing. Once you know all of these things, and once you have the end picture in mind, the journey becomes a lot faster.
Now, if somebody is starting today to produce, what are the kind of tools that they're suggest?
So if you're an absolute beginner, you can start on your phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you have GarageBand on iPhones, and there's also something called BandLab, which is new and
On Android, right?
I think so. Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
But these, like, you can. A lot of the professional tools are available on. Just to start. Like, if you're a beginner, you can definitely learn a lot using these tools, and then you can probably invest in an audio interface if you're recording something live.
Yeah.
Audio interface and a mic. Then you can just purchase gear after gear to keep your passion going. But knowing the basics and learning the concepts and the music theory and everything, that will take you a long way.
Yeah.
Knowing how to use software, there's so many softwares. You can just learn how to use one. The concepts are more important.
So there's one other aspect that our end result has to work in different environments.
Yeah.
Nowadays, music is consumed in many different manner, right? Some people listen to it, like mostly people listen to it on phone, and some people use headphones, some people don't, and people use this monitor speakers or car audio or TV, home theater system and stuff like that. So how do you ensure that your music sounds like consistent in all these different environments?
So I have a plugin that kind of simulates different environments.
Oh, great.
But it's very important after a mix is done. Very important to check that mix in, say, your car or your studio or your phone or iPad, laptop, everything. I listen to my mixes everywhere just to ensure that, okay, I might have missed out something.
Okay.
So sometimes a great mix will sound horrible in a car.
Yeah.
So just those things, just to ensure, just to be safe.
Yeah.
Because once it's released. You can't really put it back up. So it's important to check all of these boxes just before, to ensure that, okay, sounds good everywhere.
So and what about like future? We started with like a stereo, and then it went into, of course, before stereo there was like mono, but mono, stereo, and then we went into this like home theaters, surround sound 5.1, and then we went to 7.1, 9.1, and there's now Dolby Atmos.
Dolby Atmos, yeah.
So God knows what will be there in future. So how much do you as a producer need to know all this like emerging area of listening environment or listening style or listening?
So basically to kind of deliver something in a specific format is all part of the mixing and mastering process. They usually take care of mixing it for stereo or surround or Atmos, whatever format. And that is part of the mixing and mastering stage. And if you're a mixing engineer, if you want to become one of these, it's best to stay updated on all of these formats, learn how to mix on all of these formats. But if you just want to produce music, the most important aspect for you are the musical aspects. Knowing about instruments, knowing about how to produce music, how to arrange, how to program, how to work with musicians, how to write parts for them, all of that. That is more important, and that will always stay the most important thing for the producer.
I know we have had a very long discussion, but I think each of this topic actually can be a really long session. But this is going to be a very high level overview session. So I just want to make sure that we cover a couple of other things. So one is like, as a producer, do you worry about the legalities around music creation in terms of like rights, intellectual property or anything, or it completely belongs to the composer and singer and lyricist?
So there are different aspects to legalities. If you're doing a cover, obviously the rights don't belong to you.
Okay.
Unless you kind of buy the rights, which is rarely the case. But if you're doing a cover, YouTube has something called Content ID that picks up. If you're doing a cover, YouTube will pick up on it, royalties go to the composer. System is already in place. So that's not something to worry about, because you're allowed to cover someone else's song. The royalty system is very strong. So if, let's say, I do a Bollywood cover today, YouTube picks up on it. Whatever the monetization that the money goes to the artist, which is great.
Okay. Yeah.
Because if I make a song,
Yeah.
someone covers my song, I make money of it. That's great for me.
Absolutely.
So that system is already in place. But if you write a song, and if you release it, so before you needed to copyright and do all of that, but now basically if someone uses my song in their video, that system works for me as well. So I can monetize off that.
Okay.
It's called content ID.
Okay.
So if someone uses my song, that system, it's an automatic system.
Yeah.
Now, if someone illegally uses it in a film, that's a different problem. That's a bigger problem. That's where the lawyers come into play.
We are not going to go there. Yeah. I also wanted to talk about collaboration. So I think as a producer, you need to sort of associate yourself with like certain bands or certain different style of music, so that you keep on working on different kind of sound, right?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you're working on a rock band, mixing for a rock band, or producing a Bollywood track or classical or anything.
Yeah.
So how much do you think it's important to be associated with different kind of live?
It's definitely
bands?
important to be associated, because it gives you a new perspective on how different people make music. And that kind of grows your imagination on what is possible and how different ways on how certain things are possible. So that's why the association is important. But if you're like a DJ or some then you can just go solo.
Yeah.
But the association really helps if you want to get, like, if you want to grow. That's where it helps.
I think just one last question that I want to ask is as a producer, what's sort of the long-term sustainability plan to always earn well and have a long-term career plan as a musician or as a producer?
Yeah, so there are different stages. First thing, it's very important to stay updated and keep updating yourself, because music keeps changing every 2-3 years. There's a new sound.
Yeah.
So it's definitely important to keep listening to music, knowing what's trending, what sound is new, what are the new tools out there that you can use. Staying updated and staying educated and increasing your knowledge, that goes a long way. Because as a producer, there are multiple revenue sources. You can make music for ads, you can make music for short films, compose background scores, you can produce someone else, you can produce and release songs yourself. There are multiple revenue streams, including teaching music production and all of that. So, but at the end of the day, it's important to stay updated and be the best you can be. That's you have to work hard day in and day out to kind of hone your skills, become a little better every day. That is very important. And when you talk about revenue streams, as I said, there's multiple revenue streams for a producer. But to get to a stage where you can kind of leave everything and do this full time, that's a long journey. That's not something that, because it's not like a 9-to-5 job. You have to keep going out and about and showing people your music, showing people what you can do. I worked 6 years, I didn't make any money off production. I just did it because I was passionate about it. And that's going to be the case with everyone. Not everyone gets a record deal on day one without producing anything. It is your work that speaks for you. So it takes a good amount of time for every producer who's starting off to develop a whole body of work with people, collaborate with people. Before you start earning money, it will at least be 2-3 years. Where then you can grow from there.
And I think that's where even the role of social media is also very important. That you collaborate with different kind of artists and keep putting your stuff out there.
Exactly.
To be noticed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it's also important to associate with so many people. Be it musicians. It's just a faster way to learn things. Association. It's very important.
Cool. I think this has been just a very insightful, wonderful session today, Mahesh. Thank you for taking time
Thank
out.
you for having me.
And any parting notes?
Well, don't expect to become a producer overnight. It's a long journey, and yeah, it's very satisfying at the end of the day.
That's awesome. Thank you for your association with Livdemy for such a long time, and I know this is going to go on Mood Indigo, and I think you're familiar with the Mood Indigo and.
Of course,
the
yeah.
festival.
That festival is something that everyone talks about, and every musician wants to.
Absolutely.
It's such a wonderful audience. Attending a Mood show or performing a Mood show, that's like a lot of musicians, like it's on their bucket list.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's a great festival, and about Livdemy, like I'm very passionate about music education, and this is something that I really want to see it grow, and I'm really looking forward to having many more artists and working with so many more people on Livdemy. So
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mesh.
of course, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.